Now, last class we looked at um, all right. So in our last class we looked at um. All right. Can anyone remind me what we looked at in our last class? Anyone remember what we looked at in our last class? You can use the comment section because we've been looking at data types in JavaScript and applying them. I hope everyone can hear me though.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Okay. So does anyone remember what we looked at in our last class? Anybody? Yeah, yeah. You go ahead. You can use the comment section or just say. All right. I think we'll just get started anyways. So yes, yes, we looked at control flow, loop, and string manipulation. So I explain to you what control flow is and how to loop over a code or how to create a loop, how to create loops and different types of loops, the for loops, the while loop, the do while loop, and you saw how we could do string manipulation. So what do you mean string number? Yeah, could you explain what you mean by string number? All right, so we looked at, you can just type it in. So that's what we look at. So today we are going to be looking at functions, arrays, and objects. So functions, array, objects. All right, so functions are fundamental concepts in programming, and they are blocks of usable codes that perform a specific task or a set of tasks. So a JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. A JavaScript function is executed when something invokes it. So in our last class, I mentioned something about invoking a function or calling a function. So we're going to be seeing more of what makes something a function. So a function could have multiple tasks. Let me not use methodology here. I don't say multiple functions. A function could have multiple functions. It's a bit confusing. But a function could have multiple tasks. But it's always best to um give your function one task. It's always best. So it doesn't confuse you. Because the larger your code base gets, you're going to have to separate different tasks into different types of function. Um, Maybe just a simple function, um, receiving uh, um, like receiving the data you sent on the form, then refreshing the page, or a simple asynchronous function that's fetching data from an API, just like that. So you'd have to actually separate and keep your functions with only one task, one major task. Don't pack all everything and just put there. You know. So the next thing now, next slide is so we're going to be looking at the syntax. A JavaScript function is defined with the function keyword, so followed by the name, followed by parentheses. So function names can contain letters, digits, quotes, and dollar signs. So the same rules as variables. Except that one of the differences that between functions and variables is that a variable can be a particular data type, maybe numbers, objects, arrays, you know, but a function has a set of instructions. A function could have different data types inside of it, but those data types inside of it that are defined, those variables that are inside of it, are usually local variables. You can't call them outside of the function. And we'll see that shortly. But I'm saying that a function is more like a set of instruction, while a variable is more like a declaration. All right. So the parentheses may include parameters, you know. So your function can include parameters. So those things inside of the bracket, inside of the parentheses rather, those are your parameters. So the code to be executed by the function is placed inside the curly braces. So that's an example at the bottom there. You could have function. So you start every function you want to name. Let's say you want to name a function or declare a function. You always start with the keyword function. Then you write the name of the function. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But it's always good to use a very very good um, conventional name or so you are not confused. So that once somebody looks at your function, oh, they know, okay, this is what this function is doing. You can name let's say a function is meant to calculate um perimeter. Then you name the function perimeter. You know, it's a bit vague. You can decide to call it perimeter of you know of a rectangle, perimeter of a whatever you want to call it. So that's the syntax. That's how a function is supposed to look at. The next thing is function invocation. So that simply means calling a function. So ignore the big word there. So it just means you're invoking the function. So the code inside the function will execute when something invokes or calls the function. So there are different ways to rather you can invoke a function after defining a function, writing it all down. Like, take for instance, all we have there is function greet name. Name is the parameter, so it's it means that it's expecting a name. All right. Now, if it was TypeScript, now we would have to define the data type for name. Maybe name could be an array. Name could be an object. Name could be a null. It could just be null, so or undefined. So, but this is just JavaScript, so you could just put name there. Kingsley, do you have a question? You have a question, Kingsley?
That question was is advantage did you
Okay. Okay. So, um, one of the ways you can call a function is when an event occurs. So, um, there are things they call click events. Okay, click events. So when a user clicks a button, you could call a function. So, then if it is also invoked when from JavaScript code, and it could also be automatically self-invoked. Let's say if the person comes to, okay, take for instance, there's a code I was writing recently that required me to save user data to cookies. I'm sure you've seen cookies before, or rather, most websites that you go to, just like they tell you, oh, this website uses cookies, you know, accept or decline. Or sometimes they tell you this website uses analytics, accept or opt out, those kind of things. So the website I was working on required me to use cookies to save user login sessions. And not just save user login session. If a person decides to go to a certain route and the person is not authenticated, if the person is not authorized now to go to that route, it has to redirect the person to a whole different route. Now, the function is automatically called. That's an example of what on automatic function. You know, I don't have to, the user doesn't necessarily have to do anything. The person will just be redirected to a whole different route because the person doesn't have access to that route. So that could also be an example of automatic self automatic self invoke in invoke I mean invocation. Yeah. So what else again? Um one JavaScript function can call another function. So you notice that you have a chain of functions all linked together. So what else? Okay, I talked about click events. Um, when a user clicks maybe a button, an image, anything actually, or hovers, a function could be called. You know, I think sometime in the past I worked on a website where a personal project actually, where if a user hovered over a character, so it was meant to be a Marvel website. So if you hovered maybe over Iron Man, then you hear Iron Man's voice. Just hover, you don't have to click, you know. So so you see something like that. So there are different events that could occur calling function. So it calls the it makes an API call to my I had set up a sound should I call it sound API also. So it was calling the audio of the of any of the Marvel characters on that website. Anyways, so here you see that let message equals to greet Alice. So Alice in this case is the parameter. So that was expected. So yeah. Moving on. So parameters versus arguments. So what is the difference? I think somewhere along your programming journey or your journey as a programmer, you come across arguments. So I took the opportunity to sort of like mention the difference between parameters and arguments. So parameters act as input slots for values that function expects to receive when it is called. So they define what type of data or information the function needs to perform its task. So we have the function add now. Now you know that there are two parameters, which is x and y. Now you know that when you are now calling or invoking a function, you should have two parameters, lest the function will return to you an error telling you that one of the parameters is missing. But like I said, I use a lot of TypeScript, so I'm going to be referencing TypeScript a lot. So like I said, if it was TypeScript, you'd have to perhaps create an interface now. Yeah, create an interface and explicitly define the data types of the two parameters you're about to call, you are calling, or rather invoking, or rather including in your function. So, but this is also this is JavaScript, so you may not have to do that. All right. So arguments are the concrete data that get assigned to the function parameters when the function is invoked. So they provide the necessary input to the function or for it to perform its operation. So we see const result equals add. So in the variable result, we are calling a function that we defined above that has two parameters. So the arguments of that in this case is 5 and 3. So parameter is like, think of parameter as a placeholder and also like a form of instruction for JavaScript. So arguments are the how do I put this now? They are meant to occupy the spaces of the placeholders you declared when you're declaring the function. So I hope that sort of like makes sense. So the space that x and y is occupying, 5 and 3 occupies it instead when you're now actually using the function. All right. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is the return statement at the end of every function. So when JavaScript achieves a return statement, the function will stop executing. So it took me a while to actually get a hang of this thing when I first started learning React. So that's why I started realizing this thing. Um, the return statement usually contains it ends the series of codes or instructions. So the moment you declare, you write function, you call the name of the function, or write the right name of the function, then put parentheses, then open the curly braces. Then you just start writing your instructions or you're writing your code. Now, after writing it, to end the function, it must always have a return statement. All right, it must always have a return statement. So if the function was invoked from a statement, JavaScript will return to execute the code after invoking the statement. So functions often compute a return value. So the return value is returned back to the caller. So we so at the bottom there you see an example. So let x equals to my function. So my function has arguments 4 and 3. But at the bottom you can see that it's defined as with its parameters a and b. So a and b telling you that it's expecting two arguments. Those parameters tell you that it's expecting two arguments. So at the end of it, you see at the bottom there return a times b. So whatever you put in place of a and b, they are going to multiply each other when you invoke or call the function. All right. So the next thing now is okay. I just thought to mention this. When it comes to like JavaScript, if you don't get everything that is being talked about, it's fine. It's actually very fine. One of the best ways to understand JavaScript is by practicing, practicing, practicing. So practice more, you know. Everybody has different ways they understand something. Um, but at the end of the day, everybody understands it to an extent. So you don't understand everything I'm talking about right now. It's actually fine, but don't stop practicing. Don't stop going through documentation, and yeah, you're going to get better at it, and eventually you'll understand. So and always avoid tutorial. Okay, they call it tutorial hell, you know. So where you are stuck with ever learning, never actually coming to an understanding of concepts, you know. Always it's always best to understand concepts, you know. You don't have to memorize every line of code because you can't. But it's always best to understand, you know, it's basically you're trying to learn a new language, you know. You just got into a new country, you're trying to learn a new language. You have to actually speak it all the time, you know, practice it all the time, and eventually you get a hang of it. So this is basically you communicating sorry, this is basically communication between you and your computer. So you have to understand the syntax of the languages, you know, not necessarily the codes. So the next aspect we're going to be looking at is the function scope. So yeah, and also the rules of the syntax. Let me put it like that. Because in English there is adjective, nouns, all of these things, verbs. So you know when it comes to like programming, there is functions, objects, then the different rules of engagement. So I'm going to look at function scope. So variables declared within a JavaScript function become local to that function. So if you declare a variable inside a function, you cannot use it outside of that function. You can only use it within that function. All right. So you understood what variables are in our very, very first class. So another way, if you try to declare a variable outside of a function, if you declare a variable outside of a function, you can call it. Oh God. Sorry, can everyone hear me now? I had sort of like a breaking transmission. All right, thank you. Seems like this network is really doing a number on a lot of people. All right, so local variables can only be accessed within the function. So as you can see, there are examples there. So like I said, you always start a function with the keyword function, and you write the name of the function, then you so let car name equals to Volvo. You can use that outside of my function. And all right, so I think the second picture is quite self-explanatory. So global variable equals to I'm global, and local var, which is local variable, equals to I'm local. So the next slide now, introduction to arrays. So it's going to be a very, very short introduction because I already talked to you about in the first class different data types. I told you about what arrays are, I actually think arrays are the most simplest to get, but arrays have a lot of um, methods, and we'll be looking at those methods and how to use them, going through documentation as well, and all of that. So, and yes, I know I've been promising to send things you'd go through, things you'd read. I'm really sorry. I've had a very, very, very busy week, and but I will send them. I will send them. All right. So, introduction to arrays. So, an array is a special variable which can hold more than one value. So, yeah. So that's an example of an array. So, const cars equals array. So, an array is not limited to just three. It can be 3,000 if you want. So, so why use arrays? So, if you have a list of items, a list of car names, for example, and storing the cars in a single variable could look like this: car one, Saab, car two, Volvo, car three, BMW. However, what if you want to loop through those cars and find a specific one? And what if you had not three cars, but 300? So its solution is an array. So an array can hold many values under a single name, and you can access the values by referring to an index number. So in programming, I don't want to say in JavaScript now, in programming generally, um, numbers always start from zero. So the index number, which is the first number on the array cars, is actually zero. So if you were to call, cars, open square bracket zero, and console.log it, you get stab. Stab is your first number. So it's 012. That's all that's there on the array. 012. You start counting from zero. All right. So next slide. Methods manipulating arrays. So um, it's a little bit okay. I don't say self-explanatory, but okay. But there are different ways you could manipulate an array. Like a method is always adjoined at the end. So I think in our last class when I was doing a coding example, I showed you the different methods you could use, you know, um, and there are different use cases. So if you had an array, let's say cars with 6 elements, if you did cars dot length, and you call that method, it will give you the total number of cars. All right. So you did dot push, you are sort of like putting something, it's like adding a value to the array. And you did dot pop. Sorry, I'm just giving you a quick overview, but we're actually going to look at examples of these things. Um, I think I'll just share my screen at that point. But pop means to, well, remove something from the array. So push means to add something to the array, you know. And I'm pretty sure you can guess the next one: shift, unshift, join, delete, slice, and all of that. All right, so I don't know, is this the end of the slide? Okay, so we have introduction to objects. So at this point, I think we'll just switch over to the W3 school documentation. I actually looked through it, and I actually feel like I think you guys will best understand that better. Because I mean, they couldn't have put it any better, or I couldn't have put it any better. It's actually quite simple and straightforward. So could you just give me a couple of seconds? Okay, I would actually okay. Um, I think we'll just look at examples. Uh, can anybody see my screen? Can anybody see my screen? All right. Okay. Okay. So we'll start. We'll go over objects, then back to arrays and look at a couple of examples. Then if I still have time, maybe we could actually solve some okay, maybe we could actually solve, or rather code, when I say solve, we could actually code some exercises on objects, arrays, and functions. We would actually mix everything up and see how or actually every one of them works together. So JavaScript objects. So real life objects, properties, methods. All right. So in real life, a car is an object. So a car has properties like weight, color, methods, and methods like start and stop. So we have car.name, sort of like the same thing that I mentioned. So if you have an object car, all right, if you have an object car, you want to get the name, which the key, objects usually have what they call key value pairs, all right? So they have what they call key value pairs. So you want to get the name of the car, you know. You could actually say car.name. So, all right, so, okay. Const car type Fiat. So we said car.type, you get Fiat. Car.model, you get 500. So car.color, you get white. So you get the idea, right? So they are called key value pairs. So you write the name, then you get the value. All right. So you write the name, then you get the value. So so it's a common practice to declare objects with the const keyword. All right. So object definition. So you define and you create an object. So the way they define it, so an object could look like this for the purpose of readability, for someone to easily just read it at a glance. It's always best if you do it like this instead. All right. You define an object like this. So there are key value pairs. So key value pairs. So they're always a pair, like this. And after every key value pair, there is a comma. So you have a comma there, except at the last one. You can decide to add or remove. That's entirely your choice. But there's always a comma as long as it's not the last one. All right. So, and there's something they call nested. You can actually put an array inside of an object, and you could also actually put an object inside of an array. So don't think that um it's limited to just objects. You know, you could actually nest these things inside of each other. You can nest an object inside of a function. You can so sorry about that. I think my network just keeps coming and going. So you can nest an object inside of a function, an array inside of a function, you know, and you could use a for loop, and loop over an array as well. So, it's not limited to just that. And hopefully, we might get to actually see that. All right. So, object properties. Uh, okay. This is just telling you the property and the value of this objects defined here. So, there are different ways of accessing object properties. So, object name dot property name. So, like I said, if you want to add, this is a person, this is the name of the object now. If you wanted to know the value of the first name, you'd have to do person dot first name. All right. So person dot first name, or you can just do person open brackets, sorry, square brackets, and you just include it like this instead. All right. So they actually do the same thing or mean the same thing. Mhm. So, but my personal preference is just using a dot. You know. So JavaScript objects are containers for named values called properties. So objects can also have methods. All right, okay. Objects can also have methods, and methods are actions that can be performed on objects. So methods are stored in properties as function definitions. So apparently, you can also nest functions inside of um, objects as well. Yeah, you can nest functions inside of objects. So as we can see here. All right. So someone had mentioned that okay, that I should go over the what was that? Okay, array manipulation. So the different methods that can be used on arrays. So we'll just go through it. This is actually documentation I actually wanted to send to you guys, so you could actually not just learn but actually practice what you are learning. So let me hold on. So arrays and methods. So JavaScript array methods. So there's the array join, array delete, array splice. So all right. So let's look at this one. So we have an array fruits. So it has banana, orange, apple, mango. So you have should I say four things now inside of the array. So if you decide to if you said let size equals fruits dot length, it will give you the value of 4 because there are 4 things inside of the array. So that's what dot length does. It gives you the okay, it returns the size of an array. All right, let me just put it like that. So it returns the size of the array. JavaScript array to string. So it converts whatever is inside the array to a string. So yeah, converts an array to a string of comma separated array values. So document.get element by ID. Okay, demo the inner HTML equals fruits dot string. So your what it should look like is this. It should look like this. Banana, orange, apple, each having a comma after it. So the join method also joins arrays or array elements to a string. So it behaves like a push string method. But in addition, you can specify a separator. So this is the difference between the join method and the to string method. All right. So you could actually look at methods as as also functions as well. Um, can anybody tell me why? Does anyone know why you can actually look at a method as a function? Or rather, what similarity does a method have with a function? Anybody? Does anybody want to try? Okay. So I think one of I'll just go ahead and answer the question. The similarities between a method and a function is that they both have that parenthesis at the end of it. So, and they can also take in what you would call arguments as well. So it's not all of the methods that are taking arguments. Some do, all right? Some do. Take for instance, the join. You can put in that separator, which is that star separator. You can decide to put in anything that you want in order to separate the values um of the array. Okay, so just continue. Um, then we get to this one, which is popping and pushing, like we saw here, which is pop and push. So when you work with arrays, it's easy to remove elements and add new elements. So popping, so you pop, to pop means like sort of like remove, popping items out of an array and pushing items into an array. So at least just sort of like try to remember that. Um, all right, so we have an array fruits as well, but you want to remove something out of it. So if you said let fruit equals to fruits dot pop, you'd end up removing one, not just one, the last one. So you remove the last one. That's what you do. When you call the array, then put a dot pop method after it. And the same thing goes for push. So if you said const fruits and let length equals to fruits dot push. So it's now the array will now be updated. It's now become banana, orange, apple, mango, and kiwi. So you pushed kiwi into the array. Then shifting elements. So shifting is equivalent to popping, but work on the first element instead. So instead of popping the last one, we remove the first one. So if you said fruits dot shift, you end up removing banana, which is the first one. So you end up removing it. So it's shifted out. And an unshift method adds a new element to the array at the beginning. So if you said fruits dot unshift lemon, what you now have is new array, or rather, the values of the array is now updated. So what you now have is lemon, banana, orange, apple, mango. So pushed, it pushed, yeah, it pushed lemon into to start from the beginning. All right. So that's what on shift does. Shift removes from the beginning, pop removes from the end, and push adds from the end. So array elements are accessed using your index numbers, like I explained. Array indexes start with zero. So you have zero is the first array of the elements, one is the second, two is the third, just like that. So if you said fruits zero equals kiwi, um, I think let's see that about for ourselves. Can everybody see this tab? Can anyone see this tab? All right. Okay. So as you can see, so we have cons fruits equals to we have an array of fruits, which is banana, orange, yeah. So we notice that in demo one, we are calling the ID on demo one, and we are including um fruits dot fruits zero equals to kiwi. So what happens there is, sorry, hold on. All right, sorry, I quickly had to take care of something. All right, so what happens there is that it replaces banana as okay. I didn't mean I'll just switch the screen so I can explain this one by one. So as you can see here, it's defined fruits. All right. So we define. Let me just space it so there's no sort of like confusion. So it defined fruits array. Then it's called um the ID demo one as fruits. Then it called it to the array of fruits it's defined. Then it now pushed, or should I say, um, on shift or shifted, rather replace the value. Let me just say replace. Replace the value of the um very first value or element or whatever that's inside the array with a new value. Then called it in demo two. I don't know if that makes sense. So you notice here what you have in the array is banana, orange, apple, mango. But after this happened, all right, after this happened, this change here, the new value became kiwi, orange, apple, mango. So it replaced banana as index zero, or rather the first element or first value with kiwi. It replaced banana with kiwi. And like I mentioned, or rather like you saw, and I also mentioned, the numbering starts from zero. So banana is zero, orange one, and apple two, and mango three. You don't count them as one, two, three, four. It always starts from zero. All right. So um, that's about that. Okay. Um, I think much later you can go over the documentation yourself. I just want to find out, does anybody have any questions or something they need me to clarify? And this is a lot of persons were not in the meeting. I'm not entirely sure why. Um, but at least we're having a lot of network issues. So does anybody have any questions or anything they would like me to clarify? So maybe you could drop in the comment section or actually or mute your mic and stuff like asking. So does that mean that everybody understands? Wow, okay. Um, that's actually nice. Um, all right, all right, okay. So, okay, sorry, hold on. All right, so let's just look at a quick example. Um, just a quick one. Actually, going to be quite easy. Um, So we're going to be calculating area of an object. So with an array, all right. Sorry, with a function, we're going to be calculating the area of an object. So not an object, but yes, calculating area. Let's just leave it like that. So we're going to write a JavaScript function named calculate area that calculates the and returns the area of a rectangle. So the function should accept two parameters, which is the length and the width. So I think I'll just go ahead and sort of like write it. And so that's basically that. So this is all the function will do. Right? So we define the function. So all we need to do is just put two, or rather put any number we want. Alright. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Hello? Okay. Sorry about that. I actually writing a bunch of things. I thought my screen was actually showing. Turns out network actually just. All right. So basically that function is a bit self-explanatory. So the function is meant to take in two parameters, which it already does. So when you are calling the function, you just have to write calculate area, then include the area, which is sorry, include the arguments, which is the length. Let's say the length of the rectangle is 4. You write it, and length of the width of the rectangle is 5. So if you call that function now, it should give you. Sorry, the return statement there is used to return the calculated area as the result of the function. So if you call the function now, it should give you your answer. If there are no questions on arrays, objects, and functions, I think that will have to be the end of this class. So no questions, right? Okay, please, Kingsley, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
And
I
please, I
can
want
hear
to,
you.
yeah, please, I want to, I've noticed since I've been doing this JavaScript, you have been using the script tag. Is that one? Is it one of the ways of calling the this thing into the program? Like, is it one of the ways of calling
I've been
JavaScript
using,
into the coding?
sorry, you said I've been using the script
Script,
tag,
script.
right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Okay, so what was your
So,
question?
so I was asking, is it one of the ways of calling JavaScript? Like one of the ways of using JavaScript?
Are you asking me if there's another way to use JavaScript?
Yeah, apart from this one, or is this the only way to use?
Okay. So one of the reasons I've been using script tag is because it's I'm using an online IDE. So I'm using an online IDE. So that's why I'm using script tags. But usually it's always best. I think maybe in the last class I actually not in the last class, but in the very first class or so, I showed you there are ways you can use JavaScript. The script tags could actually be at the end of the body. The script tags could actually be at the beginning, like the same place you put you define your style sheet, that is your external style sheet. The script tags could be there. And the script tags could also be in an external JS file. And or the script sorry, the JavaScript could actually be in an external JS file. So I think that's maybe what you meant. Um, yes, so you can write the same way you write CSS, let's say index.css. You could have something like that, index.js, which is actually and primarily the normal way to go about it. It's only on very, 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 very few occasions you use um, script tags inside of your HTML code. All right. So maybe you are going for analytics now. Let me use. You are building a website in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You can decide to write the Google Analytics code. To let's say you want to track analytics on your website now. You can decide to write it on the script tag inside the HTML file, or you can write it in a separate JS file, then import the JS file into your HTML file. So there are actually different ways you could go about it. Is there any other question? Anything in JavaScript that is sort of like a little bit confusing before I go?
Please, I want to be sure of something. You can remember in the I think the first two classes in JavaScript, you talked about using you wish to type something document IE. I can't remember. So I'm just asking, like what I'm trying to ask is, imagine if you have, let's say, okay, I've written something with
Using
HTML and CSS.
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right. So I said, let's say I have, I saw you. I remember in
Yes,
the first
yes,
two
I can hear you.
classes. Yeah, I remember in the first two classes, you said something. You wrote something like document ID, when you were trying to import. I can't remember whether you were trying to import the file. So what I want to ask is, if let's say I've written something with HTML and CSS, and I want to put the JavaScript something on it. Am I going to just find a way to import the document into what I'm doing, or is there any other way about it?
Okay, so I understand what you're asking. Something like documents dot get elements by ID, but you have a separate JS file, and there is no, how do I put it now? There is no, the ID is not inside the file, right? So how do you reach out to it? How do you call it, right? That's your
Yeah.
question, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and sort of like explain it. Okay. Um, if you had a CSS file, I want to believe you understand CSS. So if you had a CSS file and you had a class name, let's say dot background, then inside of it you had something like background no repeat. Then inside the background you also specify an image URL. And all of these things are all inside of your index.css or your styles.css, you know. But the class names have already been put inside of your HTML file, but you have not imported it yet. At that point, it hasn't taken effect. All right. Um, Sometime along in the future, you'll probably run into what you call global CSS. Um, but even that one, you still have to import it. But anyways, so yes, so if you have not imported the CSS file, even though you have defined all the class names inside of your CSS file, and you put all the class names inside the HTML tags, you still can't make use of the styles on it. So you have to import the CSS file. So it's the same thing in JavaScript. You can write document or get elements by ID or get element by class or query selector, then tell it to you want to do this and do this and do that. All right. If you have not imported the JavaScript file, you have to import it. All right. So you have to write script, then src, the same way you import, not exactly the same way, but JavaScript are always you always use the script tags, right? You always use the script tags. Um, you do something like you do something like that. So I just sent it to the message section, so you can just look at it. So once you do that, you have imported your JS file. So whatever you called, whatever you did inside the JS file takes effect on the HTML file. So you just simply do that. All right. So um, any other question? I saw someone was it Tochukwu also raising his hand.
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I think there was something you were doing actually without function stuff. But I don't
All
know
right.
whether you wrote some lines of code pertaining that stuff. Yeah, but we did not. I don't. So we did not see anything you were typing like that particular side. Yeah. So I don't really understand what happened there.
Okay. Was it the function calculate area?
Okay.
Okay. So I defined a function. So remember that I talked about defining functions. Sorry. Sorry. So I define a function, and you know that to define a function, you start with the keyword function, then you write the name of the function, which in that case is calculate area. So we're calculating the area of a rectangle. So we're expecting two parameters, which are the length and the width. So length times width will give you the area of a rectangle. So we open the curly braces and we just wrote a return statement, which is meant to return to you the multiplication of the length and the width. So if we were to write, or rather invoke a invoke the function with, let's say, like that, you'd get 12 as your answer. All right. You get, sorry, you guys can see the comment section, right? So I'm just going to be using the comment section.
Camera section.
What? You guys can see the comment section, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
All right. So if after defining the function, like the way like the way you saw, you know, so if you call the function, or rather invoke the function, you should get 12 as your answer because you are expecting a length and a width, you know. So this was basically what I was writing. I thought maybe it was visible at the time. Any other questions? Sorry, Tochukwu, did that make sense to you?
Yeah, 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 yes, yes, yes. Okay, I think you said that stuff you wrote in the comment section was all you actually wrote about function. Right,
Yes,
okay.
but do you understand? Do you understand what I wrote there? Like what you're looking at? Do you understand it?
Yes, yes.
All right. I think yeah. I'll just send those now. All right. I'm really, really sorry that I haven't sent it since one thing after another. Okay. All right. So, does anybody have any other questions? and I was sending all the slides now, right now. All right, so if there are no other questions, thank you everybody for joining the call. I'm really sorry that it was moved from Tuesday to today. I noticed not so much that turned up for the class, and also called like network issues. So I really apologize for all of that. Um, Thank you. And so like a word of advice, please um don't stop practicing, don't stop learning. Um, when I first started out, like in my class, the boot camp, right? Not really boot camp now. I just got tutorial videos and I just started watching them, and so like I didn't go training like boot camp or somebody to come and like sort of like teach me. And, you know, I just watched the videos and lots of them. So um, I'm trying to say, don't focus on one learning source. You know, scour the internet. There is so much. There is so much. You know, scour the internet. You know, keep reading, keep practicing. So, all right. So I'll just send this like now and everything now. So, thank you guys, and yeah, good luck.